Good morning. We begin our time together in song with Come, Come, Whoever You Are. Its words attributed to Rumi were set to music by Lynn Adair. Please make sure your microphone is muted and sing along energetically to welcome in this new, beautiful day and to welcome one another, all who come here again and again. Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Gwinnett. My name is Jan Taddeo. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. It is a great joy and tremendous privilege to serve our faith as the minister of this congregation. Welcome and thank you for joining us this morning. If you have a chalice you would like to light with us in a few moments, please have that ready. We arrive from many places and many life experiences as we gather in this cherished space to recall our true selves, reflect on the meaning of our lives, and to explore questions of ultimacy together. We are people who are new to Unitarian Universalism and people who are lifelong Unitarian Universalists. We are people of many religious beliefs and spiritual practices. We affirm and promote the responsible search for truth and meaning. We are people of many genders, sexualities, ethnicities, origins, ages, shapes, sizes, and expressions of our true selves. We affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of all people. We are people of all ages and family structures, and we each bring gifts, talents, and passions that serve to affirm and promote communities with liberty and justice for all. We are people of covenant who engage with one another in ways that promote and affirm justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. We are people who care deeply for our planet and understand we are inextricably and profoundly connected with the web of all existence. We are people who welcome all who are seeking a community of faith that welcomes your whole self, all that you were, all that you are, all that you yearn to be. All of you is welcome here. You are just where you should be, in a room full of compassionate, thoughtful Unitarian Universalists ready to meet you where you are. You are welcome here. You are home. And if you are a newcomer with us this morning, we hope that you will indeed find your spiritual home here with us. Come and be curious, courageous, and compassionate with us as we walk towards our vision of becoming a radically welcoming sanctuary in a green space where we foster spiritual growth as we joyfully nurture connections and community within our walls and beyond. If this is your first time here, I encourage you to join us several times to experience the full flavor of this congregation and this faith tradition. So glad you are all here with us this morning. And now I invite us all to take a big, deep breath and bring ourselves more fully into this precious time that we've set aside to be together this week. And as the vibrations of sound move through us and around us, may we be reminded how deeply and inextricably and profoundly connected we are with one another, with all humans, with all beings on this planet, all life, all the stars in the cosmos and beyond. The words for our call to worship this morning come from the Reverend Dr. David Breeden, called The Day Unwritten. Welcome to a new story. Welcome to a day unwritten. We gather to speak of possibility. We remember the losses. We celebrate the victories. As a people of story, we embrace the possible over than the probable. We embrace the possible over than the probable, weaving a story of hope. Join us in the new story. Join us in the day unwritten. Join us in the future of possibility. And now I'm going to light our chalice, and you can light yours at home with me. And I offer these words from Paul Sprecher. We light this chalice for the web of life which sustains us, for the sacred circle of life in which we have our being, for the earth, the sky above and below, and for our Mother Earth, and for the mystery. This morning we welcome into membership Laura and Tony Burton. Hello. Susan Eller. Elle and Kevin Schneider. And that's Cora, and I don't know where Parker is, but and John Tangney. Hey, John. Laura, Tony, Susan, Elizabeth, Kevin, and John. It is a great joy to welcome each of you into the membership of the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Gwinnett today. You have reached this moment through a free and responsible search for a spiritual home. We are a covenantal faith, and the covenants you hold with one another, your minister, other UU congregations, the wider community, and with that which is ultimate in your knowing, are indeed sacred covenants. Today you are choosing to enter into covenant with the members and friends of this community. This congregation and all Unitarian Universalist congregations exist because of the lay members who are responsible for the leadership and stewardship of the congregation and for the vision and moving towards that vision together. In this place and among these people, we gather to share new insights and explore ancient questions, to celebrate our joys and seek comfort for our sorrows. We come together to engage the world with curiosity, courage, and compassion as we live into our vision. In this way, in this community of seekers, we create a model of beloved community.
When one joins the congregation, there are many commitments that are implicit with membership. Commitment to learn and grow in understanding how to live into our vision to be a radically welcoming sanctuary. This commitment includes being welcoming to people who identify on the continuum of gender identity and sexual orientation, people of different ethnic and racial identities, and religious and spiritual beliefs and practices that are consistent with our shared principles and values. Commitment to learn and grow in our vision to be a green space and being ecologically and environmentally aware in our practices within the congregation and in our wider lives. Commitment to your own spiritual growth and faith development. Commitment to connect with others in meaningful ways within the congregation. Commitment to connect with people and organizations in our wider community. Commitment to attend Sunday services on a regular basis. Commitment to support the congregation financially by making and fulfilling an annual financial commitment based on our suggested giving guide. Commitment to volunteer to support the programs and shared ministry of the congregation and to serve as a leader insofar as your skills and experience coincide with the needs of the congregation. Commitment to learn about and become involved in the larger UU faith as you are able. As members of this congregation, you are entering into a deeper emotional relationship with the congregation. As in any relationship, there will be times of great joy, times of sorrow, and times of challenge and hardship. In covenant with the members of this congregation, we ask you to remain committed to the well-being of this congregation and our shared vision through both joyful times and difficult times. This is one of those joyful moments. Choosing to enter into covenant with this congregation today is indeed a cause for celebration. Welcome.
What is the church? It's not the music, except to the extent that we make it when we blend our voices together to produce sounds lovelier than any one of us could make alone. We welcome you and invite you to join your voice in harmony with ours. What is this church? It's not a required creed or common belief, but rather a shared commitment to the free and responsible search for religious truth and meaning through the infinite sources available to us. We welcome you and invite you to share your spiritual journey with us. What is this church? It's not the building, except to the extent that together we have built it and made it ours through the contributions of our time, talents, and treasures. We welcome you and invite you to discover and share your gifts with us. What is this church? It's not our leaders, except to the extent that we have called them to inspire and guide us. We invite you to participate in developing your leadership skills and becoming a leader when you are called. Our vision is to become a radically welcoming congregation and a green space as we foster spiritual growth and joyfully nurture connections and community within these walls and beyond. We walk toward this vision with curiosity, courage, and compassion. We welcome you as a member of this congregation and invite you to share in our vision and mission and enter into covenant with us now by reading the congregational covenant with us now. The words are displayed on our screens, and as I read the covenant, I invite you all, our members and friends, to share in reading it from home, even though your audio will be muted. We, the members of the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Gwinnett, in covenant with each other, honor this entire congregation, its spiritual growth and mission. It is our deeply held belief and commitment that this be a community of love. We sustain our community through trust, compassion, and inquiry. To live our commitment, we recognize the inherent worth and dignity of every person and relate in a respectful manner with each other. We strive to understand each other and find agreement when possible, questioning and listening with open minds and hearts. We practiced empathy, forgiveness, and gratitude. We practice direct communication between parties to resolve conflicts and misunderstandings. We hold ourselves and one another accountable for the work of the church, for doing the work of the church responsibly. When reaching out to the larger community, we do so with compassion, in the belief that we model an ethic of peace, liberty, and justice. To these things we hold fast as we create our gathering place.
Laura, Tony, Susan, Elle, Kevin, and John, I have written your names into our official record of membership, this book that includes the names of all who have joined our congregation since our founding in 1981. When we are together again in person, we will invite you to sign your names in the book. And hopefully Laura and Tony will come down and see us sometime. They live kind of far away. We welcome you all with open hearts and open arms. If only I could hug you now. So you are welcome here. So glad to have you. And now it's time for our Wonder Box. What could be in the Wonder Box? Can Reverend Jan open the Wonder Box? There we go. Oh. Well, this is the best I could do for a tapestry, because tapestry is a concept for this service, I believe. So I have tapestries downstairs, but they are really big and hard to put in the Wonder Box. Oh, and look, there's some books about storytelling. So storytelling is such an important part of ministry and life, actually, in our lives. And so I have all these books that I've bought about how to be a better storyteller. And someday I'll read them, and then I'll be a better storyteller. How's that? So the Storyteller Startup Book, Improving Your Storytelling Beyond the Basics for All Who Tell Stories in Work or Play. And this one that I actually started reading, The Storytelling Animal, How to Make Us Human. That is a fun one. So our story this morning is about stories, because that's our theme this month. And this was written by the Reverend Christina Leon Tracy. This is a story about a man with a story about stories, if you will. Once upon a time, there was a man with a story. This wasn't any old once upon a time story, not one you could find on a bookshelf or hear around the campfire. This was his story and no one else's. This story had been carefully crafted. It began before he was born, and the story told of his loves and fears, his dreams realized, and his dreams yet to come. This story was complete. It told his whole life, including those bits that still existed in his imagination. In fact, this story was so complete, and he was so happy with his story that he carried it around to make sure it was safe. It was somewhat bulky and unwieldy, but he didn't mind. It was his story. The thing about this story was it was also very fragile. Made up of many pieces and held together by own imagination, he was worried it might break apart at any minute. And so he grew more and more protective of his story. He held it even closer. And as he went about his life, he checked on the story to make sure he was following it correctly. He avoided adventure and unknowns because, well, they might break his story. And then one day the inevitable happened. Without warning, his story broke. It was unforeseen. He hadn't done anything wrong at all, but there it was, laying in 1,000 shattered pieces on the ground, with the sunlight glinting off the bits of story he had so carefully protected for all those years. He was heartbroken. And since his story hadn't said to put pieces back together, he was at a loss. What now? He sat down next to the pile of pieces and cried. A while later, maybe it was minutes, maybe it was hours, a group of people came out of the nearby building and saw him sitting on the sidewalk, surrounded by a pile of broken pieces, clearly in need of help. "What happened here?" a woman asked. "My story, it's gone. I worked so hard to build it, to protect it, to keep it from harm, and now it's gone, gone," he wailed. "Is this the story here?" a man asked. "Yes, look at it. There's nothing left of it." "It looks like it's here, not gone," said a child. "We just have to put it back together." "Put it back together? There's no way. You don't even know what it looked like. How will you put it back together if you don't even know me?" The child was tenacious. Don't worry. With all of us here to help, we'll put it back together in a way you would never expect. You never know, it might be more beautiful than before. And so they swept up the pieces of this man's story carefully and went together into the building from which they had emerged. They poured him some hot coffee and sang a song he had never heard before. Something about, "Come, come, whoever you are, again and again, though you've broken your vows 1,000 times." The song was soothing and the coffee was warm. He began to feel hope again, that his story could be put back together. And it took a long time. Maybe it was days, maybe it was years. But they got it all back together. And they added new parts and some old parts anymore. But that was okay. The child had been right. It was more beautiful than before. And this time the story was held together not only by his imagination, but the imagination and support of an entire community. It wasn't nearly so fragile, and it even allowed for adventure. And now let us sing together, "Dear Weaver of Our Lives' Design," words by Nancy C. Dorian, put to the music of Nicholas Herman.
Today's reading consists of excerpts from an article in Tricycle, the Buddhist Review, published in the summer of 2015. It's titled "The World is Made of Stories," written by David Loy, professor, writer, and Zen teacher in the Sanbo Kyodan tradition of Japanese Zen Buddhism. The American poet Muriel Rukeyser famously wrote that the universe is made of stories, not of atoms. We're not just animals that use language, we are storytelling creatures. For telling stories is a fundamental activity of all people in all cultures. The Canadian cognitive neuroscientist Merlin Donald expresses this well. Language is basically for telling stories. A gathering of modern post-industrial Westerners around the family table, exchanging anecdotes and accounts of recent events, does not look much different from a similar gathering in a Stone Age setting. Talk flows freely, almost entirely in the narrative mode. Stories are told and disputed, and a collective version of recent events is gradually hammered out as the meal progresses. The narrative mode is basic, perhaps the basic product of language. Stories, then, are more than just stories. It is with our stories that we make sense of the world. We do not experience a world and afterwards make up stories to understand it. Stories teach us what is real, what is true, and what is possible. They are not abstractions from life. though they can be that. They are necessary for engagement with life. As the Scottish philosopher Alasdair MacIntyre puts it, I can only answer the question, what am I to do, if I can answer the question, of what story or stories do I find myself a part? Unaware that our stories are stories, we usually experience them as the world. Like fish that do not see the water they swim in, we normally do not notice the medium we dwell within. We take for granted that the world we experience is just the way things are. But our concepts and ideas about the world we experience is just the way things are. But our concepts and ideas about the world, like the stories they are part of, strongly affect our perception of reality. In Buddhist practice, one learns early on and then continually the truth of my favorite bumper sticker. Don't you believe everything you think. This recognition may lead to the wish to strip away any and all accounts of the world and return to the reality beyond them, to get back to the bare facts of the experience. But that too is enacting a story, the story of letting go of stories. The point here is not to deny that there is a world apart from stories. Rather, it is to say that we understand the world by storying it. Unlike the proverbial fish, however, we can change the water we swim within. Our relationship with stories can be transformed. Stories are constructs that can be reconstructed, but they are not free-floating. In other words, we co-create the world we live in. We need stories that account for climate change and enable us to address it. We cannot simply unstory global warming, although some fossil fuel companies have tried. Living according to certain types of stories tends to increase suffering, and living different stories can reduce suffering. Our stories do not have sharp edges. They are interdependent. I grow up by accepting some of the stories that society provides, and I reinforce them by acting in ways that validate them. Stories teach me what it means to be a boy or girl, American or Chinese, Christian or Buddhist, how and why and to what extent things like education, religion, money, and so forth are important. The stories that make sense of this world are part of this world. We transcend our world by being able to story it differently. Obviously, the basic outlook of social Darwinism, that one should pursue one's own economic interests, even at the cost of others' well-being, is still very much alive and thriving. This story rationalizes some very unsavory motivations, including the three poisons of greed, aggression, and delusion. It's the deluded belief that one is separate from the others that permits one to pursue one's own interests, indifferent to what is happening to those others. Collectively, as well as personally, our stories can change. And in this case, they must change so that we can better respond to the economic and ecological challenges that now confront us.
When I was 16, Carole King's song Tapestry became my anthem. I was in Leesburg, Oregon at my father's house that sat high above, not too high, but high above the Mackenzie River that was in the backyard, with a full wall window in the main room of the house looking over that beautiful river and the mountains that surrounded it. I was alone most days, and it soon became my routine, after everyone else left for work, to start the day playing that album as loud as possible. I would dance and dance and dance and dance and sing at the top of my lungs with no one there to be offended by how off-key I was. It continues to be in my top 10 list of songs. I haven't researched or contemplated deeply the images and words in that song, but did a little of that in preparation for today's service. Mostly I just let them flow over me and through me, the melody moving through my soul. But there are certainly phrases that have resonated with me, different ones at different times in my life. My life has been a tapestry of rich and royal hue, an optimistic way of seeing the pattern of the experiences of my life. A wondrous woven magic in bits of blue and gold, a tapestry to feel and see, impossible to hold. Reminds me that stories get lost and shift and change. And a coat of many colors, yellow-green on either side, reminded me of Joseph in the story in the Bible. Once he reached for something golden hanging from a tree, and his hand came down empty. Reminds me of our grasping. Also reminds me of the man in our story whose story broke, which takes me to, and I wept to see him suffer, though I didn't know him well. A line that has helped me to have compassion for others, calls us all to compassion for others, like those people who saw the man sobbing at his broken story. This song had become so much a part of my story that I used it as the metaphor for the 8-page essay I wrote for my application to seminary. Here are a couple of excerpts. The image of a tapestry has long been the device I use to reflect on my life. I see my life as a work in progress, becoming more vivid and defined with the threads of each experience, each moment, and each encounter. My life is indeed a wondrous woven tapestry of rich and royal hue. My everlasting vision is a world in which people are committed to caring for one another and to societal policies and systems that attend to the most basic human needs for all people. In this way, we may hope to thrive together. The ever-changing view is the dance, the rhythm, and the music that is the essential spirit of my life, calling me to be present to each person I encounter, aware of the systems of injustice that currently prevail, and open to the possibilities that will transform oppression to freedom. This song that I discovered when I was 16 became a foundational story of my life, and I'm aware that I created that story. I connected some dots in my mind and applied Carole King's words to my own circumstances and dreams for my future, and I've actually resisted looking for any information about what Carole King thought about when she was writing it. I want it to be mine. In the reading that Lorena shared, David Lloyd tells us it is with our stories that we make sense of the world. Stories teach us what is real, what is true, and what is possible. And in the next paragraph reminds us, don't believe everything you think. Think about that one for a bit. Story may be the undercurrent of the river of our lives. Consider the stories that have informed and formed you. For me, there was a book I read over and over and over when I was in elementary school called Light from Heaven. I have lived into many aspects of that story, especially the part where the main character, Joseph, becomes a minister. And speaking of Joseph, another story that has influenced my life is Andrew Lloyd Webber's Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, because that album sat in the pile of albums at my home when I was growing up. And one of those song lines is, "Any dream will do." And I love that. And we know that we are creating stories all the time. It is one of the things that makes listening and being fully present to another person so challenging. As someone is sharing something of their lives, our brain is busy contextualizing, categorizing, and remembering our own stories to help us understand this person's story. And so rather than being fully focused on hearing their story, our own stories are released and the lock opens up and our stories flow downstream or out of our mouths. In this book, The Storytelling Animal, How Stories Make Us Human, English professor Jonathan Gottschall offers a chapter called The Mind is a Storyteller. And here's some of what is in that chapter. In 1962, a neurosurgeon named Joseph Bogan convinced an epilepsy patient to undergo a very dangerous experiment to separate the two hemispheres of the brain, severing the ability for the left and the right brains to share information. This led to future discoveries about how each side of our brain functions and why we now know that the Left side of the brain is the reasoning and verbal side, and the right side is imaginative and creative. They also learned this procedure seemed to work for epilepsy patients, so then there were a number of people who could help them learn more about how the brain works. Michael Gazzaniga became a pioneer in split brain research. Not a phrase I ever thought I would say. One experiment he conducted isolated what images the right eye and the left eye could see. What they discovered is that the side of the subject's brain responsible for communicating, the left, had no idea what image the right side of the brain had seen, what the right eye had seen. But that didn't stop the left side of the brain from making up a story. The author goes on to offer some pretty harsh criticism of Sherlock Holmes and his process of deduction, but I'll forgive him for that. But he concludes that section with this. The storytelling mind is imperfect. After almost 5 decades of studying the tail-spinning homunculus who resides in the left brain, Gazzaniga, that's the name of his little, he imagines this little tiny man who lives in the left brain who's making up stories. Anyway, so that little tiny thing that resides in the left brain, he concluded that the left side of the brain, for all its undeniable virtues, can also be a bumbler. The storytelling mind is allergic to uncertainty, randomness, and coincidences. It is addicted to meaning. If the storytelling mind cannot find meaningful patterns in the world, it will try to impose them. In short, the storytelling mind is a factory that churns out true stories when it can, but will manufacture lies when it can't. And we may not even know that we're lying. Our stories become our truth. At some point, I created a story about why I was so devoted to youth ministry, a story that compelled me to go to seminary. And one day I had the realization that the story I had constructed, that there were no caring adults supporting me as a teenager, and damn it, I'm going to go out there and be that supportive adult, that was a lie. Quite suddenly, I realized that there was an incredible network of people supporting me and millions of other troubled teens. This changed my story about ministry. Rather than making up for something I thought wasn't there for me, I'm paying it forward in gratitude for all who were there for me, known and unknown. We can become trapped in untruths or partial truths. Consider the phenomenon of denial. We can experience something hurtful or tragic, and our brain needs a story to process it. And sometimes the story creates a story to protect us. And it feels like the brain creates a story to protect us, and it feels like truth. I experienced this in how I coped with abuse in my family when I was young, and that denial persisted until I was 31 years old. And the story of the abuse in my family is not just my story. It's a story that all my siblings, my mother, my father, my cousins, and probably my parents' friends all have some part in, and likely different ways of telling it and different truths about it. Yet all our stories are connected, even if they differ in the details and meaning, and it's a story that will shift and morph in future generations or be forgotten. Our life stories are profoundly interconnected. Try telling a story from your life that doesn't in some way involve someone else, either explicitly or implicitly. Try telling a story from your life that doesn't in some way involve someone else, explicitly or implicitly. Implicitly, even your being, your aliveness is connected with the story of how you were conceived and born into this world. And that story goes back to the origins of life. And that story goes back to the origins of all that is, to stardust, and possibly further, since there's still so much we don't know. And so much we don't know that we don't know. My beloved Russ and I like to watch British mystery shows in the evening. We like the one-episode stories because everything is tied up neatly in 60 to 90 minutes. It feels really good to have a resolution to the story, a simple explanation for the suffering that resulted in someone's fictional demise. On my own time, I'm still got a little bit of my early growing up with soap operas part of me, and I watch stories that never end. I can resist binge watching these shows when I realize that the urge to do so is to hear how the story ends. But that story never ends. Oh, they may stop writing new shows, but to this day, I still wonder how Doc Martin is doing in his little village in Port Wyn in the UK. And so it is with the story of our lives. They are never ending, for they remain after we pass from this plane of existence. They remain in the lives of those we leave behind, and they will change them and morph them and do all kinds of things to our stories. We need to be careful with our stories, conscious of our stories, prepared to change our stories. To conclude, I return to where I began, a story I'm committed to. My everlasting vision is a world in which people are committed to caring for one another and to societal policies and systems that attend to the most basic human needs for all people. In this way, we may hope to thrive together. The ever-changing view is the dance, the rhythm, the music that is the essential spirit of life, calling us to be present to each person we encounter, aware of the systems of injustice that currently prevail and open to the possibilities that will transform oppression to freedom. We need to consciously create, tell, and live into future stories that move us closer to one another, that get at the heart of our shared experiences, and make each and every one of us more human, more worthy, more loved. May it be so. Here, we strive to create a model of beloved community. We do this in part through the care and support of one another. We each arrive here holding joys and sorrows, triumphs and disappointments. We set aside time in this communal space to honor that which we carry on our hearts, to celebrate together and to grieve together. If you would like your joy or sorrow shared aloud in this service, please share it in the chat space on Zoom, and our pastoral care associate, Lisa Keel, will read them aloud as I light a candle of compassion to lift your joy or sorrow into the collective consciousness. I invite us now to enter into a time of silent reflection as we create a container of compassion to hold all our joys and our sorrows.
These are all the joys and sorrows that have been shared today.
We offer one last candle for all the joys and the sorrows that remain held in the sanctuary of the heart. I also to ask you to take a moment to just send some good energy. We have 42 more blankets for the hospital to offer the parents to hold their, when there's a miscarriage, to hold that baby for a moment and wrap them up and say goodbye. And that will make a total of 72 blankets we've donated. And now let us sing, maybe hold one another with compassion and loving kindness as we sing together, Find a Stillness, a Transylvania hymn tune with words from Carl Seberg.
Stillness, carry me. Find the silence.
Our congregation is committed to create a more compassionate world, and to this end, each quarter we split our plate collection with an organization nominated by people in the congregation and selected by our Giveaway the Plate committee. Our second quarter plate recipient is Path Project, a Gwinnett-based organization. At the Path Project Community Centers, they offer programs that are designed using research-based best practices and are led by certified teachers and youth development specialists who serve alongside incredible volunteers to support children with multiple challenges facing growing up in mobile home parks and developing strong, positive relationships and education. They partner with park owners, schools, businesses, churches, parents, and other nonprofits to do on-site programs. Our plate contributions also support the shared ministry of this congregation, so I ask that you please give generously to support the work of this important ministry in our wider community, as well as the vision and mission of our congregation. As we listen to a recording of our pianist Brian Bishop playing Pastoral by Paul Hindemith, you will see on the screen ways to contribute to our offering via PayPal, Venmo, or by mailing a check payable to UUCG to the address shown. If you are worshiping with us for the first time, your presence here today is a great gift to this congregation. You may choose to let the plate pass. The offering will now be most gratefully received. May the generous gifts received this week move us towards realizing our vision of a more connected and compassionate world. Take a moment to offer gratitude and a shout out to the members of our choir, especially those who have been able to continue gathering weekly for our check-in and music planning sessions, and those who have the technology and capacity to add recording music for our virtual choir offerings to their already full and stressful lives. Doug Beers, Barbara Stanke, Russ Taddeo, Carol Pinto, Jen Garrison, Lydia Patrick, Elna Brinstad, Bill Benshoff, and of course, deep gratitude for Michael Parker, our choir director, who has worked long nights to ensure our virtual choir productions are lovely creations. It won't be much longer until we are making music together in person again, and some who have been unable to be with us virtually may sing with us again. That will be joyful. I also thank Tony Nastri for managing the Zoom room today, and to Russ Taddeo for running video and sound. And now is the time for our call to connection. In order to stay strong and vital as a community, we need to seek ways to continue to stay in connection. If you are new to our congregation, new to our community, please text the word welcoming to the number on the screen to receive a few texts and emails to guide you in becoming more connected. You can also sign up for our weekly email newsletter and our monthly newsletter by sending a message to info@uucg.org and asking to be added to our email mailing list. If you want to watch past services that you might have missed, or you just want to see them again, we have a YouTube channel that you can go to see those. It's UU Gwinnett is the name of the channel. We have so many projects for getting back together, and you'll find out in our congregational meeting today after the service that we have a plan for getting back together. We have a date for getting back together. So we really need you to step up and help us get the building ready for our coming back together. It's so exciting. So we have until August 15th to get it going. So please consider how you can support our efforts to spruce up our building and grounds and get us ready for all the guests that are going to come and be with us. Thank you. Property Work Day. First chance to get out there and really do it with others, Saturday, June 5th, and you can create your own property work day anytime you want to come and do something. The yard isn't going anywhere. Bring your tools and trim, pull weeds, whatever. And then the next day will be our food collection for the Lawrenceville Cooperative Ministry from 2 to 4. Just drop off your items there. We have a need for platelets for a member of our congregation with leukemia who will be going through his third round of chemo starting tomorrow. It takes 21 days and he'll need a lot of platelets. So I'll be making my appointment with them tomorrow and get out there soon to donate mine. So join me. Also, if you want to get more connected and deepen your spiritual exploration, I invite you to join one of our summer 2021 covenant groups. One will be on Monday nights and one will be on Thursday mornings for 6 sessions. So you can go to our website and click on the Register for Events button to join those. Our faith development resources are online for all ages and all families and singles and everyone, all ages. So please check out. Our elementary religious exploration program meets on Sundays at 12:30, except for second Sunday when they are sent a package on at home. And so please register your child if they're not already registered, and that will run through May, but not on the last Sunday of May, not Memorial Day weekend. And then next Sunday and every Sunday at 10 a.m. we offer a faith development program suitable for adults and teens. That's a small group discussion or activities or information or a sharing, a getting deeper on our monthly theme, this theme being story. Our congregational meeting is today after the service. It might be a little bit after 12:15, but it will be close to 12:15. And I'll say more about that at the end of the service. But everyone is absolutely welcome to join us. There will be a report from our reconvening team there, as well as electing our officers for next year. Cups event on Saturday evening, tree hugging dirt worshiper. I can't think of a better name for a workshop. That just sounds great. And for a ritual. And then Cups is also hosting the full moon gathering on Wednesday, May 26th, which is the same night as the book club, where they'll be discussing Starless Sea by Aaron Morgenstern, and a vision journal workshop on Thursday evening at 7 o'clock with Candace Courier. Russ and I have been going to the Southeast UU Summer Institute for about 25 years. And registration opened yesterday. It's free this year. Donations are welcome. It's virtual. I have a major role in putting this on, so I really hope that since it's free and it's virtual, many of you will come and check out what this Susie thing is that I've been talking about for so many years. So come and check it out. You can click, go to their website, you can see the catalog, and contact me if you have questions. And then our regular ways of getting connected. Every second Monday, the Gwinnett Understanding Secular Truths. Our choir is gathering every Tuesday night. If you like to sing, just come and check in with us and hear what we're planning. Yarns from the Heart, first and third Wednesday mornings. Courageous Coffee House, Thursday evenings. Women's Spirituality, second Fridays. Belief Exploration, second Sundays. And Exploring Tarot with Sherry every Sunday at 5 o'clock. And our pastoral care team is available 24/7 if you need confidential spiritual or emotional support or just want to talk to someone. So please use them. They are here to serve you. And now let us rise in spirit as we say the words we say to extinguish our chalice, and then sing together the hymn, I've got it here, Life is the Greatest Gift of All, with words by William Oliver, adapted by Waldemar Hill, and music by James Leith Macbeth Bain. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again soon. Our closing words are from the Reverend Sherry Woodbury to speak to and care for our stories. May we have the courage to speak or write the stories within us that need to be told, the stories that make up our lives. May we listen with loving mind and heart to the stories of others' lives, others here in this congregation, others in our wider community and in the world. Let us choose with care the stories that we teach our children, remembering that all of our stories have power and that all of our stories are connected, for all of life is one. In the name of all that is sacred in these gathered hearts, may it be so. Amen. Our service has ended, and now our service to one another and our wider communities begins. Be well, beloveds. Please do let me know if and when you get vaccinated, as this is a key factor in our ability to gather in person again. That August 15th date is contingent on a certain number of people, percentage of people being vaccinated, and I will hold this information confidential. Also, as vaccines are becoming more readily available, and many of us are vaccinated, we're up to about 74%, some people may not be ready yet to take their masks off. So maybe think about the mask as an article of clothing. And if you see someone wearing a mask and maybe you know they're vaccinated, maybe you don't, but whatever, don't ask people to take off their masks. just allow them to gently come into this new coming out, as we might say, in their own way.